Hello and welcome back to Cade's Arcade. I'm Cade. Today I'm going to be looking at the hugely popular title Batman Arkham Asylum for the PlayStation 4. This, of course, is the remastered port of the critically acclaimed original released for the 7th generation of consoles on August 25th, 2009 by Rocksteady Studios. The Batman Arkham games have always held a special place in my heart as one of my favorite game series. I think the fondness of the original game that myself and so many others share stems from growing up with the classic Batman the Animated series. And I mean, who could really blame us? Playing through the story felt exactly like watching a really long episode of the iconic TV show. Or at least it did at the time, because it's 2019, almost 10 years since it originally released. A considerable amount of time has passed since I've even looked at the game. So I thought I would get a refresher for the game to decide once and for all if the game still holds up to this day or if we're all just wearing nostalgia goggles. Now there are many things that can make a game great, there's only one thing that truly matters to me. Let's take a look at the replayability of Batman Arkham Asylum. Our story begins while Batman is in the middle of sending the Joker back to Arkham Asylum. Suspicious of how easy it was to catch the Joker in the first place, Batman decides to stick around. As usual, Batman's hunches were spot on. It turns out the Joker let himself get caught for reasons still unknown to our hero. With the aid of Harley Quinn and months of strategic planning, the Joker was able to break free of his restraints and take over the asylum. Over the course of the evening, Batman learns that the Joker had hired a scientist at the asylum named Dr. Young to help him create a bioweapon. The chemical compound named Titan was made from a strain of venom serum used by Batman's brokeback buddy Bane. Further investigation revealed that Joker planned on using the bioweapon to make his own personal army of buff boys, while simultaneously drugging all of Gotham with Scarecrow's fear toxin. One by one, Batman proceeds to take down every villain on Joker's party list and put a stop to Joker's Titan production facility. Feeling fed up with Batman's interference, Joker decided to use Titan on himself to finish off Batman once and for all. But Batman's explosive personality wins the day in the end. After all the chaos, order returns to the asylum, and all of the inmates who were injected with Titan are returned to normal. What a nice and convenient way to wrap up a plot. The story is one big thrill ride from beginning to end, for the most part. Even though I love the story, which heavily involves two of Batman's most iconic villains, there was something about the final boss that always felt underwhelming, even back when I originally played it. And I think it has to do with how out of character Joker is during this moment. The Joker is a character that's so unpredictable by nature, and to see him drop to such a cliche bad guy level was always disappointing to me. Throughout the entire story, the Joker is constantly keeping you guessing as to what he's really up to. But when the build-up ultimately leads to just another meathead boss battle, it kind of leaves much to be desired. Thankfully, however, the final boss was the only real negative I have to say about the story. I mean, it's hard not to be entertained by this game when you've got legendary voice talent behind this project and atmosphere for days. I believe the reason this game feels like it's one long episode ripped straight out of the animated series is because of the talented voice cast Rocksteady was fortunate enough to feature. As I've said in my Spider-Man review, I'm a sucker for fantastic soundtracks. However, if there's any other part of Arkham Asylum that's just kind of meh to me, it would be the music. Seriously, what is up with the unimpressive superhero soundtracks? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's bad. From the title screen to the final showdown, the music really helps to set the tone and atmosphere for the overall experience. And boy, do I love me some atmosphere. More on that in a minute. The music honestly reminds me of Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, and who can really complain about that? But beyond just being a good mood setter, the soundtrack isn't exactly something you'd see me jamming out to in my car. The music is just kind of there. Again, not a bad thing, but nothing that's going to make anyone lose their minds over. So what will you be doing over the course of your adventure? The list of moves at Batman's disposal consists of punching, dodging, using Batman's third eye to react to enemies, solving a series of Riddler challenges, and utilizing an assortment of gadgets. One thing that made the free-flow combat work so well is that they assigned the gadgets to specific buttons on the controller, which I briefly mentioned in my Spider-Man review. Assigning the gadgets to buttons allows the player to really mix up the combat on the fly without having to pull out the gadget wheel and slow down the pace of the fight. I'm kind of a sucker for seamless gameplay, what can I say? After getting the refresher for this game, I found the gameplay is still fun but not nearly as fluid as I remember. While the game doesn't feature tank controls exactly, Batman runs around like how I'd imagine someone wearing a rubber neck brace would. What I'm saying is Batman moves as graceful as a ballerina with a stick up their butt. But just like Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4, momentum plays a key role in combat. When you really build up your momentum, punching dudes left and right, that part of the gameplay still feels just as satisfying as ever. albeit a tad on the easy and button mashy side of gameplay, but it's still just as fun. That is until you misread an enemy's attack, causing Batman's equilibrium to be thrown off balance. No matter how many times I took damage or failed a mission, not once did I feel like it was the game's fault. There were moments where I full-on barged into a room, not fully remembering it was supposed to be a stealth segment, and I would immediately get shot down. In those moments, I was able to recognize that I died because I was a dum-dum and didn't check my freaking surroundings. I would make for a terrible Batman. Now it's been beaten to death. Everyone knows that the Arkham games excel at making the player feel like Batman. But it's the why that nobody seems to go into, or at least that I've seen. I think this is because the game has a way of encouraging the player to stop and look around their environments to really plan out their attack. You know, like what Batman would actually do. And if you don't, then the game really lets loose on you until you get it right. I think this is one of my favorite parts about this game. Whenever you enter a new area, there aren't any enemies planted in a way where you'll automatically take damage. If they seemingly start attacking out of nowhere, it's because you didn't do a good enough job of checking if anyone was there to begin with. Every attempt that fails is all on the player, and that's partly what goes into excellent game design. So when you mess up the timing or hit the wrong button in the middle of a combo, it's really your fault. Moving on, I will say despite the HD upgrade, which is a weird thing to say because it was already an HD game, the visuals haven't exactly aged the best. There are instances that really makes the visuals pop, but it's hard not to think that this game was made in 2009 when the thugs look and move like balloon animals. One thing that is seemingly timeless about this game is its atmosphere. There's just something about a creepy environment that I just absolutely love. A creepy environment that doesn't just rely on jump scares to make it creepy. Felt I needed to make that distinction. I'm looking at you, Five Nights at Freddy's. Arkham Asylum excels in this department. From the sound design to the set pieces, Arkham Asylum really feels like a lived-in and run-down facility from years of abuse and neglect. It's the perfect visual representation of the very inhabitants that live there. But there's no other part of the game that's as atmospheric as the Scarecrow levels. While these segments don't quite go to Eternal Darkness levels of insanity, they do an excellent job of breaking up the monotony and adding a little variety to the overall story. And they were short enough that they never really outstayed their welcome. My only complaint about them, if you can even call it one, is that there weren't enough of them featured. But the 3 times you encounter Scarecrow are always a treat to revisit for me. Beyond atmosphere, other elements that really help set this game apart from other superhero games at the time is how much this whole experience feels like a love letter to Batman fans. Overall, after replaying this game again all these years later, has led me to the conclusion that the combat and atmosphere are still just as fun and relevant today as they were back in 2009. But the music, I could take it or leave it. From the voice talent of Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, right down to the Cade getting its own character development. Rocksteady Studios, from the beginning, was a developer who understood what a fan of Batman would want in a game like this. While the visuals might not have completely benefited from the HD enhancements of the PS4 port, it's hard not to love this game after all these years. That is if you're a fan of Batman to begin with. And if you're not a fan of Batman, first off, thanks for watching my review, I really appreciate it. Second, this title is not for you. This is a game that was made by fans, for fans. And that's why I rate Batman Arkham Asylum's replayability as annually replayable. Well, I think that'll be it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care.